Hello, welcome to the Apartment Rouge, and you have found the channel here on YouTube where I do what I call mini readings, which is usually just one poem per video, sometimes my work, sometimes that of others, and I have not monetized this so that I could share the work of others, because I want to get a good library on here of poems from all over the world in English translation, of course, because that is my mother tongue and I believe the lingua franca of the internet. So if you find a poem on this channel that you really like and you would like to read it in its original language, which I encourage because translation of poetry in particular is an extremely tricky process. So feel free to look them up and see if you can find the originals. If you're interested, there are almost 100 videos on this channel now. I encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. Now, my reason for saying hit the bell is because I don't upload on this channel on a regular basis for a lot of reasons. A lot having to do with this up and down state of my health because I am disabled. I just realized you can see my walker in the background, which is disturbingly far away from my chair. I must have gotten excited and walked away from it. I do that sometimes, and then I'm like, where did I put my legs? Because that's what it's like. Where did I put my legs? Anyway. Today, we are going to read a poem by, this is so wide it's hard to see on the video. And pardon me if I mispronounce this, Abdellatif Laabi, which is spelled Abdellatif, second word Laabi, in case you want to Google him. He's a Moroccan poet, and he spent some time in prison for speaking his mind because he was under one of those governments at the time. And so he's fairly well known. You can Google him for more of his story. This is a chapbook published by, let me make sure I get it right, the Poetry Translation Center in the UK in 2013. So there's only like 10 or 12 poems in this collection, but he has written many books, and if you Google him you will see that. He has written in Arabic and French, and this is a translation. This chapbook is translated from the French into the English, which for me was an advantage because I do have some knowledge of French. I can read it most of the time. It's one of those cases where if you don't use it, you'll lose it, and I don't frequently have an opportunity to practice my French, so I have forgotten quite a bit. But when I originally reviewed this in 2013 for Yahoo Voices, I don't know if y'all remember that site or not. It wasn't really spectacular, but anyway, I read both the French and the English so that I could make a comparison of just how the translation worked from one language to the other. And I knew enough French to be able to understand what the translator was trying to do in his English translations, which particular aspects, plural, of the original French that he was trying to bring over into the English. Those are decisions that, as a poet, you have to make during translation because you're only going to be able to bring certain aspects of the original into the target language, we'll call it, because some things just can't be translated from one language to another, like puns and some rhyme schemes, and you just have to, and sometimes some rhythms, because languages. So you have to make certain choices as to what aspects of the original you're going to try to emulate in the target language according to what the target language can do and still get the idea of the poem across. That's why I encourage you, if you are able, if you know the language that the poem originally appeared in and you're interested, by all means go back and find the original language poem and enjoy that too. Anyway, so the Translator did an excellent job, though, and the aspects he decided to translate in, show off in the target language, which is English. The poem I'm going to read is one of the prose poems in this volume. There aren't very many of them, but this is one of them. This is called The Poem Tree, and I'm just going to read the English. I am the poem tree. Scientists say I belong to an endangered species, but nobody seems to care, despite the recent appeals launched to save the red panda and the African elephant. Some say it's a question of public interest, but I say it's a question of memory. From time to time, the memory of men reaches saturation point when they offload the heavy weight of the past and make room to prepare for the beloved new. These days, old species aren't fashionable. They have invented trees that grow quickly and make do with only water and sunshine, and who go about being trees both quietly and soundlessly. I am the poem tree. They have tried to manipulate me, but their efforts came to naught. I'm intractable, the matter of my own mutations. The master of my own mutations, pardon me. Seasonal and epochal changes don't bother me. The fruits I bear are never the same. Sometimes I fill them with nectar, and other times with bile. And when I spy a predator from afar, I riddle him with thorns. Occasionally I ask myself, am I really a tree? Then I become afraid of walking, of speaking the sad language of this dishonest species. I grab hold of an axe and cut down my weakest neighbor's trunk. So I cling to the roots with all my strength. Inside their endless veins, I follow the stream of words right up to the primordial cry and break through the labyrinth of languages. I grasp the sky end and pull on it to free light and music. An image reveals itself to me. I produce buds that please me and look forward to the flowers. All this occurs under cover of night, with the help of the stars and rare birds that have chosen freedom. I am the poem tree. I chuckle at all things ephemeral and eternal. I am alive. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it inspires you to look him up. He has quite the story, and like I said, he has written quite a lot, and that's just a sample. These are unusual times. If you're interested, I have been reading on Instagram, which is under the same name as this channel, over there on Instagram, and I think that's about when the whole world went into kind of the pandemic quarantine. Since March, I have been reading different books. I started out with Alan Patton's Cry the Beloved Country, about South Africa during apartheid, I believe, or just before apartheid. I think it was during. It was in the 40s. And then we read River of Earth by James Steele, about Appalachia during the Great Depression. Then we read Christopher Nolan's Under the Eye of the Clock, which I think should be required reading everywhere, because it's one of those very rare instances where you, in any kind of modern media, where you get to see the world of the disabled from the inside out rather than the outside in. Now we're reading Yeats' poems, which is quite a hefty book, and I hope it gets us through the rest of the pandemic. If it doesn't, we may have to move on to some of Heaney's work. I hope that, and I'm doing that on Instagram, and I'm posting almost every day as my health allows, regardless of what I look like that day. Let's be fair. But anyway, I hope that, and I'm doing it so that hopefully those videos can help people get through this stressful time and help them to breathe and center and be a little bit calmer, because, IGTV videos can only be 15 minutes long, but it gives you a few minutes out of every day, and it's a little bit more edifying than television, although there's nothing wrong with television if that's what you want to do, but, so that's what I've been doing over there for that purpose. And while I've been doing those, throughout the whole videos since March, I have been stressing the importance of taking care of your mental and emotional as well as physical health during this unusual time. I'm not going to call it unprecedented because I think that's not really true. After all, there was the whole series of infections that we now call the Black Death during the Middle Ages, which was astoundingly horrible. And there was the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918, which Yeats lived through and wrote about. It's just that it's not something that is in living memory anymore because there's very few people still alive who were alive in 1918. I mean, that was over 100 years ago now. So it's an unusual time for us, not something that we have in living memory, and it has caused a huge amount of stress on people, especially with their mental and emotional health, because let's face it, humans were created to be gregarious creatures, meaning social creatures, and we have had to distance ourselves from association with each other, at least face to face. Those of us who have access to the internet and various technology have been able to touch base with family and friends digitally, which helps a lot. Not everybody in the world has that luxury. A great deal of the population of the world are going through this pandemic without the help of technology. Let that sink in and be grateful for the technology that you have. But there's still a huge impact on people's emotional and mental health during this time. So I've been stressing that is probably more important than your physical health at this time, even though it is an unusual time for physical health as well. So I encourage you to make that part of your daily routine. Like, get up in the morning, have your coffee, do your usual chores, because I'm sure you still have chores you do. Whatever routine you have established for yourself during this unusual year, but include in that routine one thing at least that you do every day just to help you to relieve stress, stay calm, and maybe get your endorphins rolling a little bit in your head. I mean, and I'm talking healthy things, okay? Sing or dance or write, or if you have safe outside access, sit on your porch a little while, take a walk. Did I mention listening to music? Singing, though, is a great thing to get the endorphins going, and you don't have to be a good singer. You're not performing for the public. You just need to sing. It's been proven that if you sing 2 songs, it releases the feel-good chemicals in your brain. Yeah, do that. Little things like that. Schedule one thing every day that you do just to help you mentally and emotionally to get through this time. And, yeah. Please, that's so important right now. And if you know people, if you are acquainted with or have family members that you know struggle with mental or emotional problems, even in normal times, do your utmost to stay in contact with them in some safe form so that they know that they are loved, and in order to help them through this time too, because isolation triggers all sorts of, and I'm using the word trigger in the true sense, not the way that a lot of people use it today where I'm offended, but I mean in the true mental illness trigger sense, that it was originally used for. And so these people that already had existing issues, and let's face it, there's a lot more of them than we know, because mental illness is still, unfortunately, a taboo subject, which I do not agree with. I think mental illness is on the same level as physical illness. Usually it's not our fault. It just is. And it should be talked about as frankly and openly. And it should be treated, by which I mean by doctors, as frankly and openly. And it should not be a shame. It should not be considered shameful to reach out for that treatment if you need it. But anyway, yeah, especially take note of those people that you know about that already struggled with the issues. Help each other out, okay? And we'll get through this. Remember that this time will pass. Everything is temporary, even if it doesn't seem like it. After all, even the Black Death, even though it lasted for centuries off and on, eventually became something that there are outbreaks of the bubonic plague every year. But it hardly ever even makes the news because it's not, the outbreaks aren't big enough to be a problem. So eventually, the cause of it was discovered and they were able to control it for the most part. I imagine, however long this takes, that will eventually happen with this too, because that's just how history works. This will pass. We will survive it, hopefully. I hope you will survive it. Please be safe so that you can. And we will have quite the story to tell to people who are born later that didn't live through this time to share. And we will have learned a great many skills in how to deal with fewer resources because of all the shortages, and also stronger mental and emotional coping skills to help us deal with whatever crises may come next. Because life is a wild ride. But that's what, I mean, it's an adventure, right? You have to look at it as an adventure. But we will get through this together and know that it will pass, all right? Take care of each other, and I hope that you will. I'll see you next time, right? Be safe, and I'll see you next time with another poem whenever I can upload one, right? Thank you for joining me in my living room in this time, and bye.